Gangle and Zooble from the Amazing Digital Circus are more than meets the eye. These characters that seem jokey and one-note at first are actually deep, complex, human people. And if they can't confront some big questions about who they are and what they want, it might be the end for them. Hello internet, welcome to Film Theory, the show that has a big enough tent for everybody. Come, check out our latest attraction. It's someone walking a tightrope over a pool of carnivorous subscribe buttons. Oh wait, what? No, they fell in. Quick, smash the subscribe button to save them. Okay, subscribe pushed aside. You know, I think it's time that we grab our theorist headsets and jump back into the wacky world of the Amazing Digital Circus. At this point, I'm not sure that this series really needs much of an introduction. It's the massive hit created by the talented animator Gooseworks and the wonderful folks over at Glitch Productions, all about a cast of humans getting their minds sucked into a 90s era circus-themed video game where they're forced to go on adventures that test their sanity day after day. We're covering 2 Glitch shows 2 weekends in a row, back to back? Man, they are on fire! If you saw our latest video where I talked about all of our previous Digital Circus theories, what we got right and what we got wrong, you'll know that I want to do something a little different involving this show moving forward. Instead of taking the traditional theorist approach by making big swings about how this changes everything, or taking small breadcrumbs and trying to figure out what big conspiracy is actually going on in the background of this show, I want to spotlight what this show does better than maybe anything else. Its characters. In an older theory, we did this with Kinger, explaining how this ultimate gag character was potentially dealing with a lot of internalized guilt for bringing his wife into the digital circus, which ended up with her abstracted, and that he may soon join her in that fate. I still think that this is one of the stronger episodes we've done about this series, so today I wanted to do the same with 2 more characters that might seem like they started out as jokey or one note, but when you take a deeper look at them, behind the mask and the removable toy parts, this pair might be 2 of the most human characters in the entire show. And by analyzing their struggles and how they've dealt with them so far, we may get a small glimpse into what's going to happen next in the Amazing Digital Circus. This one's going to be fun and different, loyal theorists, so please turn your attention to the center of the ring as we get right into it. So, I wonder which of these 2 threads we should pull on first. Geez, my bad, Gangle. But hey, since you're here, we might as well start with you. Gangle. As I mentioned at the top of the episode, there wasn't really a ton to say about Gangle when the series first started. As Jax put it,
Gangle's the sad one.
Gangle's whole personality was tied to her masks, pardon the ribbon pun. When she wears her happy mask, she's timid, but, well, happy. But in every episode, when that happy mask inevitably breaks, usually at the hands of Jax, Gangle is forced to wear her sad mask, which, well, makes her sad. Simple enough, right? Now, if you've ever been to or been involved with the theater before, Gangle's masks should be familiar. These are what are known as the comedy and tragedy masks, and in modern times, they're more or less a cliche symbol that represents the idea of the theater as a whole. But what you may not realize is just how far back the association between these masks and theater goes, because man, it goes way back to like ancient times. Ancient Greece is often considered the birthplace of modern theater as we know it. Going to the theater was a big part of Greek life at the time, so much so that they constructed these humongous venues, some of which are still around to this day. The problem was, if you got stuck in the nosebleeds, it was pretty hard to make out the characters on stage, let alone read their emotions. So to combat this, actors would often don these large masks with overly exaggerated facial features that made it crystal clear to everyone, even the chumps in the cheap seats, exactly what each character was feeling. And hey, that's sort of true for Gangle too, isn't it? They're literally wearing their heart on their sleeve, or their face, I guess. Whichever personality Gangle is embodying at any moment is shown or determined by the mask she wears, which made things all the more interesting when Gangle was given this new mask in episode 4. A new mask meant a new mood, but this one was, well, let's just say it was a little bit different.
Next you're gonna say my authority isn't real.
Yeah, not exactly the Gangle we've come to know and love.
Well, maybe you just need some more training.
But it was one line in particular that really set off my theorist deep fryer.
Why would you do this?
It's called a manic episode, and you're getting 3 more seasons.
Well, I don't know about 3 more seasons. Gooseworks seems pretty adamant that there are only going to be 3 more episodes. Regardless, you catch what Gangle said there, though? She said that she was having a manic episode. Now, those of you who have dealt with mental health or seen our video about the Inside Out analog horror may know where I'm going to go with this, but for those of you who didn't or don't, well, that term, manic episode, or just mania in general, is associated with a very real, very serious mental health condition, bipolar disorder. So it's here where I want to say that we're about to dive into some pretty deep topics, and our option was to either bring light to some of these important issues or to not cover them at all. Honestly, with how the Digital Circus treats its characters with respect and how important these themes are to the show, it would have felt wrong not to include this. I talked a lot with our team about their own personal experiences, and we even discussed getting some professionals on like cinema therapy to help explain these topics. Maybe we'll do that in the future, but right now, just a heads up that this is what we're doing. And please feel free to leave a comment to share your experiences, or if you have a different interpretation here. I just want to start a conversation. Now, this is very simplified, but bipolar is a mood disorder characterized by extreme mood swings. Patients will have prolonged periods of heightened, almost euphoric feelings, commonly known as manic or hypomanic episodes. During these, people with bipolar may have racing thoughts, make poor or reckless decisions, or even forego sleep. But other symptoms can include feeling a distorted sense of well-being, being unusually talkative or talking fast, or being more energetic and agitated than usual, many of which we see Gangle show during this fast food episode. But on the other side of the coin, this period of mania is often followed up by stretches where those highs turn to lows, known as major depressive episodes, symptoms of which can include feeling sad, hopeless, or tearful, which we definitely see Gangle go throughout the series. Major depressive episodes can also include feelings of extreme guilt, where it's probably not necessary, which we also see Gangle deal with. In episode 6, while all of the characters are running around the circus playing a shooting game, instead of focusing on, that, Gangle finds herself preoccupied with guilt and worry about how Jax will react to her declining to be on his team.
Do you think Jax is gonna be mad that I didn't team up with him?
Now, to be crystal clear, I'm not an expert. I am not a therapist or a psychiatrist, so I don't want to stand here and try to officially diagnose Gangle with bipolar disorder. But she is showing a lot of the symptoms, and they are clearly having a pretty serious effect on her mental state. For example, at the end of episode 4, after she's ditched her manic mask and the gang returns to the Digital Circus, Gangle isolates herself from the rest of the group. Why? Because she believes that everyone's going to hate her forever for how she acted during the adventure, even though that isn't true. And throughout the show, Gangle struggles to stick up for herself, especially when it comes to Jax. And in the latest episode, Gangle lays out exactly how she feels about her mask and her gimmick, and, well, just listen.
How are you supposed to like the part of yourself that just makes you worse than everyone else?
Man, jeez, that really just hits close to home, doesn't it? Just, speaking from personal experience, these aren't the sorts of issues I imagine someone facing just in the Digital Circus here. That's a pretty internalized feeling that probably stretches pretty far back for Gangle, and we have gotten several hints of that throughout the show. Like, in the most recent episodes, we've gotten a lot more insight into all of the characters and their backstories, and Gangle is no exception. Though it was pretty clear throughout the series that Gangle likes to draw, in episode 5 we learned that she straight up tried to pursue a career in art, but it didn't exactly go to plan.
I was in community college for graphic design, but I dropped out. I didn't really pursue art much after that.
Yep, that is too real. She'd then go on to become a shift manager at a fast food restaurant, thus the plot of the fast food episode, before eventually stumbling her way into the Digital Circus. Now, we don't know for sure why Gangle dropped out of school. Like, it's possible that she just wasn't skilled enough to make it, but honestly, I feel like it's far more likely that something else got in the way of that passion. Check out this small interaction when the gang are in Gangle's adventure suggestion of a slice of life school anime.
There's nothing wrong with your suggestion.
How did you know this was my suggestion? question.
See how Gangle is trying to desperately cover up her drawings and deflect the suggestion that this was even her idea? She's embarrassed by her own interests when she really shouldn't be. And given how she interacts with Jax and his bullying, there could have been a similar figure or teacher in her art classes in college that really just put her down. But to be fair, that is a bit speculative. The far more likely answer for who got in the way of Gangle's pursuit of her dreams is Gangle. Whether it was bipolar disorder, depression, a complete lack of self-confidence, or something else, something caused her to kill those dreams and instead fall into the world of fast food. Oh, and just because I wanted to include this and didn't really have a better place, according to Gooseworks, Gangle is supposed to be 26 years old, and given the timeline of the show we figured out, that would mean that she grew up through stuff like the 2008 financial crisis and the pandemic. That could have easily compounded all of these issues of isolation Gangle is feeling and just made them worse. It's a small thing, and I know most of us felt like our lives got completely upended by both of those events, but I wanted to mention it because the timeline was just too perfect not to. Which also brings me to another small moment involving Gangle that seems like a throwaway gag at first, but after rewatching the series again for this theory, I'm not so sure. See, there's a scene in episode 5 where the gang are forced to play a game of softball against evil versions of themselves. Here, each of the main cast get an evil doppelganger. Well, except for Gangle.
Why don't I get an evil clone?
No, but for real, that is a very good question. Why didn't Gangle get an evil version of herself? I mean, Jax got an evil clone that was just nice, and even Orbs Man got an evil clone. Freaking Orbs Man! Where is evil Gangle? Well, beyond this being a funny gag, it did make me wonder, what if we've already seen evil Gangle? I mean, in episode 4, when Gangle puts on the manic mask, she becomes the opposite of the kind-hearted ribbon girl we've come to know and love. She gets in Pomni's face and yells at her, tattles on Jax to Kane, and even forces him to watch one of her VHS instructional tapes against his will. And if you take a peek into the video description for that fast food episode on YouTube, it reads in part, quote, "Gangle is the manager and has a brand new mask." It's like she's a brand new person. A new person, huh? An evil version of herself, one could say? Now, to be clear, I am not trying to say that Gangle is literally turning into a new character here, and I'm not trying to say that someone going through a serious mental health crisis is in any way becoming evil. Like, far from it. In fact, I feel like this is a pretty common, pretty human thing to feel. Like, I don't know about you, but some days I wake up and I just don't feel right. I don't feel like myself. It feels like the person getting out of bed is like the evil clone of me. Look, the point I'm trying to make here is that Gangle isn't just some tee-hee, look at the funny, sad character. Like, she's not Eeyore. Just like everyone else in the digital circus, she's a very real person dealing with some very real emotions. Something that a real therapist or psychiatrist could probably help her out with. But definitely not Kane. That would just make things worse. At the very least, though, Gangle could use a friend, and thankfully, she does have someone who's willing to listen to her. I'm of course talking about the foul-mouthed mix-and-match toy that is Zooble. So, much like Gangle, when the Amazing Digital Circus began, Zooble felt pretty one-note. In the first 2 episodes, they had, what, like 3 lines? And like most of that was literally them just swearing. Honestly, go off, my liege. Once the adventure started in those episodes, Zooble would Zooble off, middle fingers in tow, playing the grouchy archetype. But even as early as episode 2, we could tell that there was more to Zooble than meets the mismatched eyes. While everyone else was slowly destabilizing the Candy Canyon Kingdom, Zooble spent that time setting up for Kaufmo's funeral, letting the group say goodbye to their friend. Which, as a side note to me, is pretty fascinating because, according to Gooseworks, Zooble was the character who entered the circus just before Pomni. That means that they would have spent the least amount of time with Kaufmo before he abstracted. So them doing this really says a lot about Zooble in a great way, I have to say. Anyway, since then though, we've been given enough Zooble lore to fill a Zooble chest with. And in fact, in the noir bar scene in episode 5, we got hints at how Zooble ended up stuck in the digital circus in the first place. Here, Pomni explains what she did for fun in her previous life.
Well, I sometimes got bored of things, and I would seek out mild thrills, like exploring abandoned buildings, and posting videos of it online.
We talked about this in our last video about the digital circus, but reading between the lines here, this is telling us that Pomni was an urban explorer, stumbled upon the abandoned CNA offices, put on the weird headset, and bam! Next thing you know, she's a jester in a retro video game, which is neat and all, but just listen to to how Zooble responds to this.
I sometimes did that. I wouldn't record it though.
They were also an urban explorer, and if I were to guess, they suffered literally the exact same fate as Pomni, exploring that CNA building and putting on that same headset. But outside of that speculation, we also get some concrete facts about Zooble's backstory too. Prior to entering the circus, Zooble spent some time as a bartender and a tattoo artist, which is actually pretty impressive given the fact that Zooble is supposedly just 22 years old, and both of those jobs typically require you to be at least 18, sometimes older. Funnily enough, this history as a bartender also really fits the Zooble character arc because they very much give sage advice, similar to the bartender trope you see in just so much media. For example, that moment earlier with Gangle.
How are you supposed to like the part of yourself that just makes you worse than everyone else?
Yeah, Zooble was the other part of that interaction, giving some truly great advice about self-care. And this isn't just a one-off with Gangle.
And now I don't think anybody wants to talk to me anymore.
I still like talking to you. Look, the new mask was a bust. So what? I'm sure we'll find something that works eventually.
Man, Zooble's a great friend. But while they're more than willing to be a voice of reason and a good friend to others in the circus, it's safe to say that Zooble themselves is also dealing with some heavy personal struggles, but they're doing it alone. In episode 3, Zooble explains that they're refusing to go on adventures not because they're a jerk or lazy or anything like that, but instead because...
It's me, remember? I don't like myself. I hate this body. I hate all these stupid removable pieces. I just want to find something that feels good.
They feel uncomfortable in the body they've been given here in the circus, and despite the fact that Kane has provided Zooble with a near endless supply of parts to mix and match, nothing's felt right. In fact, we've mentioned this before, but if you pay attention, Zooble's been trying out new parts in each and every episode, but to no avail. This, along with the fact that Zooble uses any pronouns, means that it's not a crazy reveal to point out that Zooble is very much a representative for the transgender and non-binary communities. Now, I'm not part of those communities myself, and I want to stay in my lane, but everything I've researched and the people I've talked to explain very similar feelings. A lot of them deal with body dissatisfaction or body dysmorphia, like they're not comfortable in the bodies they've been given and are trying to find something that fits them better. It's also worth pointing out that Gooseworks herself is a trans woman, and though I don't want to assume anything about her experiences, I think it's safe to assume that at least some of them have been woven into Zooble's writing here. I mean, Zooble's triangular head is even reminiscent of one of Gooseworks' avatars. The parallels make sense, which also means that these are feelings that Zooble is having to deal with on top of being part of a circus-themed nightmare. But unlike Gangle, who has someone like Zooble to help support them, Zooble is more or less struggling in silence. I mean, unless you count talking to Kane, which I don't. My guy forgets all of their conversations like immediately.
Forget it.
Just forget it.
Forget what?
So with all of that in mind, what can Zooble do here? I mean, other than opening up to the others? Well, if you go back to their conversations with Gangle, I couldn't help but notice just how much of it might be useful to Zooble themselves. I mean, just listen.
Look, the new mask was a bust. So what? I'm sure we'll find something that works eventually.
How are you supposed to like the part of yourself that just makes you worse than everyone else?
'Cause it exists. It's a part of you that's real. And the only you that you should care about is the real you. You have to choose to love yourself, even if it doesn't make sense. It's not natural, it's intentional.
I mean, come on. We'll keep trying to find something until it works. The only you should really care about is the real you. You have to choose to love yourself. And in that last clip, we literally see Zooble reflected in Gangle's mask. In terms of visual storytelling, that's absolute cinema. Though I should mention that some of the folks in these communities that I've talked to about this script and about Zooble had a slightly different take, one that I wanted to bring up here. And that's that this is advice that Zooble was giving, but couldn't actually take themselves. Their experience might be one that's more about coming to grips with who they are, to find their own self-acceptance while not conforming to what everyone else says is right or normal. After all, and I cannot stress this enough, being trans or non-binary isn't a mental illness. It's just a part of who you are. But are they ready to accept that? Because judging by the way Zooble reacts to Gangle's follow-up to this conversation,
Have you ever had to make that choice?
Huh?
I think the answer is no. Not yet, at least. So the only question left to answer is, well, what happens next? So the last episode ended with a bit of a cliffhanger. Jax and Pomni, who had become closer over the past few episodes, had a bit of a tiff, resulting in Jax almost abstracting at the end of the episode. And so, when this next episode kicks off, I imagine that Jax is likely going to go back to his favorite old punching bag to try to regain a sense of normalcy, and that's gonna be Gangle. This will almost certainly be a make or break moment for Gangle. When Jax inevitably starts being Jax, is Gangle going to put her foot down and make it stop, or will she continue twisting herself into knots to try to keep Jax happy? In our last theory, we pointed out that Gooseworks said that the next episode will make a certain type of fan very annoyed, and that could be the Jax stans who are happy with him being a jerk. I believe that Jax is gonna take things a step or two too far, and really get called out for it in a way that drives a wedge between the cast, and in the end, that might cause Jax to abstract. As for Zooble, well, at some point, they really are going to need to grapple with some of the serious questions hanging over their head. They'll need to have conversations with everyone else and allow them to be the shoulders to lean on for once. But judging by the reaction to Gangle's Uno reverse card, that's going to be much easier said than done. And who knows, maybe they're already on that right path. On the one hand, over the past few episodes, we've started to see Zooble really open up, even if just a tiny amount. They've expressed how they've been feeling lately, even if only to Kane. They've started to participate in the adventures, and even make suggestions on what sort of adventures they'd like to go on. Clearly, Zooble has become much more comfortable with saying exactly what they want, rather than just flipping the bird and walking away. Though I do have to wonder if there's a bit of a darker path that could be taken here with Zooble if they aren't able to confront those questions. During episode 6, Zooble asks Ragatha if she has any of the stupid sauce left over from the fast food episode, and at the very end of the episode, we see a quick shot of Zooble very much zooted out on the sauce. Could that be a hint of a storyline to come about trying to find escape in other ways? At this point, only Gooseworks knows. Though maybe Zooble has another solution to all of their problems.
You really want to know what I want?
Oh no.
I want the ability to have sex.
Really playing to the Tumblr crowd on that one, huh? I see you, AO3. But hey, that's just a theory. A film theory. And cut. Up next on Film Theory. The Amazing Digital Circus has told us exactly who the next person to abstract is, and it's all thanks to socks.